Coming up on today's show, Chris Evans' TFI sidekick and I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here model, Catalina Guirado, on her recent marriage.
It was great, and then I remember doing tequila shots. And then I don't remember anything else.
Plus, Knots Landing's Verleen Ewing, alias Joan Van Ark, and the place in her heart of 40 years marriage.
I was confronted with what if. I can't imagine my life without him. That simple. I always wanted to get married, and I knew I really wanted that. I wasn't so sure about the children. I think I always used to say, no, I'd like to adopt, which is a little unusual, but I don't know, the whole thing, I just kind of found it a bit, ooh. So it wasn't so much I wanted to settle down and have children like everybody else. But I also wanted a lot of adventure, and I wanted a really glamorous life. When I was modelling and growing up in London, and I did have a blast, and I started going out at 15. You know, I used to get lots of attention from probably not very nice people, but it was fun, you know. I used to like go out, and I'd be out with Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen and all these great actors. My persona on television was very different from, and in the magazines, it was very different from the real me. And I didn't know how to act myself around these people because I thought they wanted what they saw. And I think they were probably a little bit upset when they actually realised that I wasn't this real full-on good time wildcat all the time. And actually, I really wanted to cook dinner and, like, you know, go out with them and be really like proper girlfriend and boyfriend and not just like messing around and all that kind of thing. You know, I probably kissed a lot more boys than anything else, put it that way.
Everybody's taking photos. They're quite funny.
Oh, and here comes the Don.
The Don, yeah. Decided it looks like a mafia Don or even a South American general dictator or something.
He was a matador back in the day. And he was like, we walk down the aisle, we don't walk like a matador, proud and strong. And I'm like, no, we're walking slowly and gracefully, Daddy. But the night I went out and I met Matt, I had this little feeling that something really good was going to happen that night. And we were going to this bar, everybody goes there, called James's Beach. And met the girls, we went in, and the first person I saw as I walked through the door was Matt, standing against the back. And I was like, ooh, he's nice. And I went upstairs and I thought, no, I've got to talk to this guy downstairs. What am I doing? So I was like, right, boom, over there to you. And Matt and I stood against the wall and we talked all night.
Signing in matrimony of Matthew and Catalina. Matthew, could you please confirm your full name?
So as you see, there's like a million of us all in that little room there, because there's 2 best men, 3 bridesmaids, 3 flower girls.
No, they weren't flower girls, they were junior bridesmaids.
Junior bridesmaids.
I think the reason our relationship worked was the fact that we didn't have press over there. You know, back in London, there's so many stories about these people I'm meant to have gone out with and just aren't true. And the way the press are, especially at that time, I'd just come out of I'm a Celebrity, well, about 6 months prior to that. So there's a lot of press about me. So if I'd met him and tried to have a relationship in London, it would have scared anybody off. And I don't think it would have worked. And then I saw a paparazzi trying to sneak round to take photos of it while we were standing there. So I was just like, oh, I can't believe it. So I went and hid in the back. I'm like, that's just really rude.
Matthew and Catalina, the giving of a wedding ring is the ancient and traditional way of...
I made the mistake of taking him to Tiffany's, right, one day, as you do, and trying on all the really big rocks in Tiffany's. And I think poor Matt thought that he had to get me one of those big rocks. And I so didn't want them, it's just fun to go to Tiffany's. So poor Matt thought that was the case. And then I was like, oh no, you don't have to do that. He goes, oh, okay then. And that's when he said, will you marry me? I thought he was joking. So I'm like, oh God, you don't have to make a joke out of it. He's like, well, I can't win, can I? He goes, no, seriously. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course I will. My parents split up when I was 7, and my dad lived in Spain, and I had very little contact with him probably till about 9 years ago, where we kind of had a bit of a reunion. And We've been over a few times and my dad's been over, and my mum and dad get on quite well now. Well, I thought so anyway. I always wanted my father to be at my wedding. I really did, and I wanted him to come and walk me down the aisle. So my dad had never met Matt, and I remember my mother told him that I was getting married, and then I came to England and I had to call him. And he's Spanish and he doesn't speak very good English, and on the phone it's even worse. So I couldn't understand what he was saying, and I think he might have had a few drinks. So, because it was lunchtime, you know, a bit of a tapas. And I couldn't quite understand what he was saying. And suddenly, after all these years, he's trying to be father. He goes, you know, it's like, oh, so this is a good man, yes? Why you want to marry him? Yeah, it starts being really, like, fatherly. I was just like, what do you want? So that was a bit of a weird one, but everybody else was brilliant. The wedding itself, so fabulous. We wanted a intimate, slightly rock and roll, beautiful, elegant setting. And my dearest and oldest friend, Mark Fuller, he has a boutique hotel in Cookham called the Inn on the Green, which was perfect. It happened to be, you know how bad this summer was? It was the hottest Sunday of the year. There was that Sunday, it was the day, and the heavens shone down on us. It was exactly what I wanted. It was about 85 people there, and just close friends and family. They'd made a red carpet down the middle of the courtyard, and I had to come in the back gate to walk down the red carpet, and just as I'm getting through, my dad stands on my dress. So I'm like, anybody here was, Dad, get off my dress! Eric Way did the dress, and it looked so beautiful. And Toby Roberts did the most amazing flower arrangements, just amazing. I'm actually a little upset because they did get more comments than me. You know, so I think the flowers stole the show. And the thing is, right, this is really serious, and you always think it's really serious, but our wedding, the whole ceremony was really light-hearted, and we kind of talked to each other and also to our audience.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome. And be like kind of joking around.
We tried to make sure it wasn't solemn. And
yeah, I didn't want to start. It was, and everybody said that it was one of the most fun weddings that they'd been to. Matt and some musician friends of his went into the middle room, and they'd set up a dance floor, and Matt and his friends played loads of songs on the guitars and sang. And everybody joined in, and I was dancing around with my bridesmaids and my little children around everywhere. And it was great. And then I remember doing tequila shots. And then I don't remember anything else. I remember going upstairs at 10:30 with my friends and passing out. And I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning with Matt coming in. I'm like, oh, calm down now, I feel fine. He goes, no, everybody's gone home, babe. They've all gone to sleep. It's something you plan your whole life. And I don't remember my wedding night. It's really awful.
Up next, celebrity cake couture, courtesy of Mich Turner. Plus, Knots Landing's Joan Van Ark on her long marriage.
Little Venice Cake Company is one of the country's leading couture cake companies. We work with a lot of high-profile clients, and we are designers of exemplary couture wedding cakes. I started the business back in 1999 when I was a buyer at Harvey Nichols, and I left there because my client base had grown so much that it was important that I offered the service that my clients expected and deserved. We're renowned for being completely bespoke with our designs. We offer a service at Little Venice Cake Company where clients can come to the studio for a design consultation and tasting of all the flavours of our cakes. This does mean that on occasion we do have celebrity clients coming into the studio, which we're more than happy to welcome. But we welcome personal and private clients with just as much vigour and excitement and enthusiasm. My very first celebrity client was right in at the deep end because I was asked to design and make the wedding cake for Madonna and Guy Ritchie, which was held up in Skibo, and that was literally within a year of starting the business. And quite quickly I became known as creating wedding cakes for celebrity clients. So these have gone on to include Pierce Brosnan and Keely Shea Smith, Paul McCartney and Heather Mills. We've also created wedding cakes for Cheryl Tweedy and Ashley Cole, Elvis Costello and Diana Krall, Kate Garraway and Sophie Ellis-Bextor, to name a few. We're very much led by our clients' personal preferences, aspirations and desires, and very much we find that the cakes that I'm designing will reflect my clients' personalities. Okay, well I'm working on a wedding cake here that we're going to be finishing in time for a wedding we've got going out this weekend. It's quite similar in design to the birthday cake that we created for Gordon Ramsay's 40th. It's a base tier of chocolate cake topped with a cone that's all painted with chocolate, and then we've got this chocolate plastique which we've made by blending chocolate with glucose syrup, and I'm frilling the edge on the end here to give it some nice texture. And we're going to wrap this right the way around our chocolate truffle torte with chocolate ganache buttercream. It's going to be very similar to what the bride's wearing, creating a lovely sash around the base of the cake with a big chocolate bow. And we're making a diamante sugar brooch using little crystals all made from sugar. Creating Cheryl and Ashley's Cole's wedding cake was a lovely experience. They were a really smashing couple, and it was important in light of the World Cup last year that the cake created a real wow, as it was very high profile at the time. The cake that we designed for them was tiers of lemon cake with caramel icing and little ribbon bows that reflected the colour of the outfits they were wearing. And the beauty with these chocolate cakes is they're very sculptural. So although you have to be skilled at knowing what you're doing, you work on them quite quickly, so it's important that you know what you're doing because they set very firm very quickly. It's important that the detail on their cake is exemplary. We find that because the cakes are going to be very scrutinised, whether they've signed deals with TV or media publication, it's important that the cake stands up to that close scrutiny. But I would like to add that for every client that we work with, they are offered the same level of intricate craftsmanship. I'm just using the edge of a rolling pin to thin the edges. And then we take each one, concertina and curl it up into a nice frill. When I was working with Pierce Brosnan and Keely Shea Smith on their wedding that was over in Ireland, I designed a 6-tier wedding cake for them. And we were giving various interviews on the cake, and Keely had said, if I have a great man, great dress, great cake, nothing else matters. I remember thinking that, oh God, the pressure's really on. We had one wedding cake that was set up for 6 tiers, and I had another tucked away in a box of exactly the same number of tiers, exactly the same, beautifully decorated, just in case any of the tiers had got damaged in transit. But thankfully, none were required, and we came away from the castle with another cake all tucked up in its box. So I'm feeding this collar of chocolate around the cake, bringing it up and around. We are fortunate enough to work on occasions other than weddings, and these have included David Beckham's 30th birthday cake that we had to make, bake and transport to Madrid with 48 hours notice. And more recently we created Gordon Ramsay's 40th birthday cake, which was inspired by a Venetian ball that he was having. So it was a big tiered chocolate cake with hand-moulded Venetian masks that we gilded, which is what prompted him to say that we were the Bentley of cake makers. If I were fortunate enough to be able to create design a wedding cake for my most idolised celebrity, I would love to design a cake for Marilyn Monroe. I think she has exceptional, sexy, beautiful, grandeur, status, goddess, iconic, glorious femininity, which I think could transpose itself beautifully on a very elaborate, gorgeous, romantic wedding cake. So by the end of today, this spectacular wedding cake will be finished and be fantastic enough to grace the most celebrity of weddings.
never, you know, imagined I'm going to move to Los Angeles, Hollywood, and make my living in film and television and all that. I never crossed my mind. However, when I was 14 years old and the star quarterback in high school didn't ask me to the prom, he asked D instead, Russell James, you bum. I decided, oh, who needs guys? And I went and auditioned for a play, The Mad Woman of Chaillot by Jean Giraudoux. And there was a monologue. The waitress, Irma, does a monologue. And it was a cold reading. They handed me the script. I'm 14 years old. I'm thinking, I don't need Russell. I think I'll just try out. And I read this monologue and read this speech, and you could hear a pin drop. And I thought, who needs guys when I can get this kind of attention just reading the speech? When I was offered Dallas, which was the initial role that spun off, Gary and Val were the characters that spun off to become Knots Landing. I was offered that role, and I was doing for Estee Lauder, which is, of course, a famous cosmetic, I was doing all their voiceover work. I was also shooting something here, I don't even remember which show it was, but I had like 2 jobs going. I was going to finish this show, and I was going to be in New York, and they offered me Dallas, which was to be shot in Dallas at South Fork. And I said, you know, I read the script, and it was buzzed about already, Dallas. They were saying, this is the hot new show. And I read it, and I thought, how can I be in LA doing this, down in Dallas, and then back in New York doing 2 days worth of Estee Lauder commercials? And he read it and talked me into it. He said, you've got to, it's a wonderful part. So my husband talked me into a role that would become a 15-year chapter in my life. I have known him forever. He is, without a doubt, my best friend for life, and we have shared our lives. And when I do interviews, they all say, well, how do you combine a news reporter and a news anchor and a newsman with your acting career? But it's all we've ever known is 2 different kinds of lives, but parallels, and both in a way in show business. But we met each other at Boulder High School in Boulder, Colorado. I go at 18 to Yale, the youngest female after Julie Harris, to go to the Yale School of Drama, which is a graduate school, so I hadn't had any graduate courses. I go there, and then I'm there a year and at the Guthrie, and then I'm offered to go to London to do a play in London at the Piccadilly Theatre in Piccadilly Circus. And I thought, well, I don't know anybody over there. I was never going to turn it down. I had to go and be in this play. But I let my husband know, who was at that time stationed in Germany at the Air Force Base at Spangdahlem. And I let him know with a telegram that I'm coming over to do this play. And every weekend he commuted from Germany to come down and be with me for the weekend. And that was the beginning of the end, because he said, you can't go home from London without going through Paris. You've got to just at least see Paris. And I thought, well, he's probably right. I get to Paris, and he said, well, you can't leave from Paris without coming and seeing what the Air Force Base is like and meet my friends. And so it was like from lily pad to lily pad to lily pad to wedding. We got married on the Air Force Base. Not the way I had planned it, not at all, but that's what happened. The wedding is insane because I imagine it would be like Lady Di or Princess Di, if you will, and Prince Charles. It was going to be, you know, unbelievable carriage, a train from here to New York, behind the bridal gown I'm talking about, all kinds of pomp and circumstance. And of course we were married on an Air Force base with you know, a skeleton crew. The man who gave me away was Tip O'Neill, his boss at the Armed Forces Radio and Television, which he was reporting and doing all the commentary. We had to be married in Binsfeld in Germany. We had to be married twice. Once in the economy in Germany, and then once on the Air Force Base to make it official. And when we had this chart or whatever for the marriage certificate in Germany, they asked, had I ever had relations with my husband's father, and had Jack, my husband, had relations with my mother? This was one of the, I know, it's like, what is this? What are these bizarre questions? And so we had to, you know, go through this, which was all in German. Didn't understand a word of what they were asking me or telling me. We had to have a translator. It was a bizarre double ceremony. So we went from the Binsfeld German ceremony to the chapel on the Air Force Base, Spangdahlem, and had the wedding. And my dress, I have a photo which I don't think I can even share with you. It's so horrific. But the dress, the German women are a little bigger than me. The size 2 here, they didn't have any dresses that were my size. So the matron of honor, who became my best friend, because she just took care of me, because I always need somebody. Blanche needs someone to peel her a grape. 24/7. She made the dress smaller for me. She altered it from the whatever size it was to whatever size I could wear. I remember the rehearsal. I'd never thought I'd get married like this, and I remember putting 2 pieces of licorice on my teeth so that when I turned to my husband to smile and say, will you, whatever, I had 2 missing teeth in the front. I don't know if anyone ever got a photo of that, but the wedding was not quite what I had in mind. It's why we've done twice saying the redoing, restating our vows, once in Colorado and once here in Los Angeles. When they asked my husband, how do you sustain a long marriage and a long relationship, he said, progressive loss of hearing. So slowly diminishing that. But now my husband has earphones. He has all the songs and all the Sinatra and all the Beatles and the Elvis and all the songs ever, Coldplay, everybody. He loves music more than life. And he wears these little earphone things, and I think that's his way to get away. So if you progressively don't hear your spouse and your mate, it's like the Dolly Parton secret. Don't be together, stay apart. And that is part of it, so that the times together you just are crazy and in love and whatever. But I don't know, I think it's sharing both the good and the bad. And I mean sharing the bad to help someone through a dark time or a death or whatever it might be. When there are ebbs and flows, if you're there to kind of connective tissue for all of those, it makes the weave of the cloth that much stronger, I think. Well, we've had a year that's kind of weird because my sister that I've talked about, to explain my love or feeling, my sister has had an episode with ovarian cancer, and of all things, the same year, just prior to that, there was a thing on Jack's ear that turned out to be a skin cancer, squamous skin, but it traveled to his neck, and he had to have surgery on his neck. And it was in the lymph nodes and things like that, and I was confronted with what if. I can't imagine my life without him. That simple. So it's the other half of my breath, the other half of my heart. That's it.
Next time on Celebrity Brides Unveiled, glamour model and serial dater Jodie Marsh on the man who took her up the aisle.
She probably regrets not hanging on to him, I would imagine, just for the size of his manhood alone.
Plus, heiress to the Ann Summers fortune, Vanessa Gold, on how she found love with a copper.
I have dated a stripper, but also a male model who's very handsome.
All that and more on the next Celebrity Brides Unveiled.